Welcome to another edition of What the Heck is Going On in the Real Estate Market this week? A lot of the same, but some changes. Saw an article about the frenzied housing market finally coming down to earth. Read into that. So, that's interesting, seeing some signs in the local market. So I wanted to dig into that. I also wanted to dig into a lot of the comments that I got from the commission video this past week or 2 weeks ago. A lot of confusion, a lot of questions, and I want to try to maybe clarify that, answer some of the most common questions and talk about it. So let's dig right in and get right to the first article that I've got going on here so we can kind of find out what the heck is going on with the housing market, because there are definitely signs happening in the industry across the country. Things are starting to slowly shift. I'm seeing that a lot on the old YouTubes and on the news, amongst other things. Of politically, we will not get into on this live stream. I'll make it very clear. Please do not make any political comments on this live stream. We're not going to go there, but I wanted to talk about this. This article kind of sums up what kind of in line with what I'm seeing. And this is right out of Fortune magazine, posted on Yahoo Finance. And it's home prices are still sky high, but the frenzied housing market is slowly coming down to earth. Keyword slowly, which for those watching is the opposite of crash. So the article kind of says, after years of frenzy, the housing world is cooling off. Home listings are piling up as buyers step back from peak home shopping season faster than normal, referring to, of course, the spring market, which was very much off from years past. It wasn't anything like what we've seen in a normal spring market, not anywhere close because of the lack of inventory. And of course, lack of inventory when there's not homes to buy, people can't buy what they don't have. So those numbers were down. This is according to Zillow's chief economist, Skylar Olson. They go on to say, as competition cools, sellers are stepping up price cuts to try and entice buyers struggling with affordability. And we're seeing that across the country. Every area is going to be different. Every area is going to have a little bit, a different version of those price cuts. Northeast is not as many, but we are seeing them. And whereas southern states are seeing a little bit more. She continued, a housing market that for years has been defined by fast sales and few options is starting to look more like it did before the pandemic in terms of competition. Those are the keywords: competition among buyers and their negotiating power, if not cost. So for sure, right in that, in that quote right there, a market that for years has been defined, fast sales, and starting to look more like before the pandemic. Not in regards to pricing yet. Maybe getting closer to what we saw in terms of interest rate, but more so what we're seeing leveling out is just the competition with the buyers. It goes on to say that, so while housing is nowhere near pre-pandemic affordability, there's the key word, it is less intense, and in some cases that can mean less costly. The total number of homes on the market is close to 23% more than last year. But of course, it's 33% below pre-pandemic levels. So this is actually super subjective because of the fact that it depends on where you live. Our levels here in New England are far below the, where they should be. And they've come back up, but not anywhere near close to where, say, Austin, in Florida, certain parts of Texas, Florida regions, certain regions of Florida, the inventory has come back down to 2019 levels, pre-pandemic levels, or can't come up, as the case may be, as far as the inventory levels. So when you have an increase in inventory, that means there's more to choose from. When there's more to choose from, there's less competition. And when there's less competition, that means there's going to be less over asking price offers and price adjustments. The article goes on to say, so in June, there were roughly 1.1 million homes listed for sale. Still, that's the smallest deficit in almost 4 years. We got a lot of catching up to do. Homes are staying on the market longer. I love how they say, by about a few days. You couldn't get more, that's about as clear as mud. A few more days than last summer. Okay. And because competition isn't so fierce in that there are fewer bidding wars and home selling way above asking, sellers are slashing prices. Now, I will say that my commentary on that is I don't know that they're slashing prices as much as buyers would like them to be slashing prices. I have absolutely seen price drops. I've seen price drops in my area, Massachusetts. I've seen price drops across the country with home buyers. And there's definitely, we're out of that realm of multiple offers. So I think from a buyer's perspective, that obviously gives you a little bit more confidence, a tad. Still, affordability is ridiculous. It's still super unaffordable. But I think more importantly, from a seller's perspective, we've got to adjust our expectations, adjust the expectations on how many offers are coming through the door, so that if it's properly priced, it still might take a little bit to get those offers, and don't be disappointed if you don't see 10 offers in the first weekend. I think that's critical, and it's always been proper pricing. While sellers still have a slight edge nationally, Zillow's market heat index, market heat index shows a balanced market maybe just over the horizon. Competition is easing fastest in the South. All major Southern markets are either neutral or buyer friendly, with the exception of Dallas and Raleigh, which is interesting. And I use that. I think that term buyer friendly, they are only talking about the inventory here, because you look at the price, the average price of a home, and the current interest rates at this moment, although the interest rates did have 2 price cuts in the last 2 weeks. So the interest rate, I think today was at 30-year fixed, was at around 6.875, right around 6.8 was roughly where it was, which is down below where it's been sitting at 7, a little bit above 7 for a long time. That's good, but that's not enough. That's not enough to balance the scales of affordability. So they go on to say that still buying a home isn't cheap, and is a far cry from where it was 4 years ago. Median income households can only afford mortgage payments on a typical home in 9 of 50 metropolitan areas. 9 of 50. And it's gotten to the point where 20% down payment is barely enough. This is not going to move the housing market. If we have more inventory, that is not going to move the housing market. The only way that this gets more affordable is that, potentially the house prices will come down. The question is how much. Sellers will only give so much. There will be buyers that will want to pay. They'll want to move regardless. So that price point it'll bounce. It'll be a buffer that, between the prices coming down and the prices plummeting. There'll always be buyers that need to buy. And as long as there are buyers that need housing, that need a place to live, then there's that's the barrier for those prices to drop. If the buyers completely disappear, now those prices, you're talking about crashes and plummets and all the things. But as long as there are buyers that are insulating those prices, at some point, they may slowly come down, which I think is exactly what's going to happen, but it's not going to be a plummet. It's not going to be a sharp decline, which absolutely does not help the affordability, unfortunately. And 20% down not being enough is honestly, it makes it extremely tough for a first-time home buyer, extremely tough for a home seller who is living and needs to sell a first-time home buyer home. Because if you're in a home that is in first-time home buyer category, now you're in a tough situation, because the typical buyer that would be buying your home may not be able to afford it, not because of the overpricing or anything of that nature, just in general. In general, they don't have to have down payment to get that really where it needs to be, because it's escalated so much. It says last month, the typical home was 3.2% higher than a year before. The typical mortgage payment is 6% higher than last year and has increased. Now, this statistic I just don't think is relevant. It's increased 112.5% since the pandemic. The interest rates during the pandemic was a false interest rate. That 2.5%, 2.875%, 3%, 3.5%, that was artificially lowered. That was not a real, in the sense that we can't measure it by. Unfortunately, that's what catapulted people into homes and pushed up the prices. But the 50-year average for interest rate is 7%. So to say it was 112% increase is, I think, artificial. It doesn't mean that it's significantly worse. It just means that it's significantly unusually low, artificially low. So if those that are joining me here, if you want to pop in the chat, tell me where you're watching from, that would be great. Be nice to know where everybody's at this fine Tuesday evening here on the East Coast. It's 6 o'clock my time. It says there are 4 major metropolitan areas where home values have dropped from a year ago: New Orleans, Austin, San Antonio, Birmingham, per Zillow. But that means they're up in the other 46 metros. Hey, Jackie Baker. Oh my goodness, with the super chat. Let me get a little bit of, heck yeah. Let's see if we can get this going here. Oh, I'm having a little bit, there we go. A little technical difficulty. Come on now. I'm a one-armed paper hanger tonight. Thanks so much, Jackie. She says, "Hey, Jen, we need more homes for sure to help this market." Good Lord, we need more than homes to help the market. This market needs more than that. We've got Morgan Lee. Oh, LA, good old LA. My daughter almost went to college at Noman School of Art out there in LA. Stacy, Liberty Hill, Texas, good old Texas, north of Austin. I'm heading that way, beginning of September. Actually, I'll be down in Dallas, and then my family lives north of Austin. I'll be stopping by Buc-ee's, good old Buc-ee's. Katie D, hey, from Michigan. Hi, good to see you, Katie. Jackie says hi too, for sure. Glad you guys are here. The article goes on to say that mortgage rates have fallen, given some buyers more purchasing power. Fallen. I don't consider going from 7%, 7.1% to 6.83 falling. I think it's slightly shifted for sure. And we've got Lee from Alexandria, Virginia. Please let me know if I mispronounced your name. Is it Lee or Leah? I think it's Lee. Bailey, San Mateo County in good old California. Welcome, guys. How's your weather out there? It's miserable, rainy here, but at least it's not hot, 75 degrees. Thank goodness. It's been like 95 lately. No, thank you. Not here. They go on to say mortgage rates continue falling, but not enough to fully offset the effects of the mortgage lock-in. Essentially, he says that this is Thomas Ryan, a research firm economist. He says he doesn't see a wave of sellers crashing into the market, at least in the near future. I think that's the big thing that people really like. I think we need to take that into consideration. Like in order for this market to crash, plummet, whatever word you want to use, whatever fantastic word you want to use, the sellers need to come in at an alarming rate. Like we need to have a flood of people come in at the same time to give so many choices to the buyers that the sellers are competing for buyers. And we're not anywhere near close. Not anywhere near close. Most areas in the country are well below where the break even is for a typical market inventory. Not even close. So it's going to take some time to get to that point. I said, 80 degrees. I like 80 degrees. 80 degrees is nice for sure. Welcome, Dolls of Nostalgia. Warrenton, Virginia, good old Virginia. Talked to somebody in Virginia today. Yes, absolutely. And oh, thank you very much, C. Schultz. I'm so glad that I'm glad you're enjoying it. Really appreciate you being here. Let's see here. Going on to this article, it says, nevertheless, home listings have crept up this year, and we expect that trend to continue, given the degree of pent-up selling demand. Rising supply will slowly erode seller power, with house price growth slowing. So it's interesting to see, like, the different news articles and their, the way that they're reporting and different viewpoints and so forth. And, a lot of them are saying the same thing. A lot of them are giving information, predicting, outcomes that are all very similar. Excuse me. But I wanted to point out, like, on this one, in terms of some justification, I wanted to get a little bit into some data to really kind of just, instead of taking that surface view of the Fortune magazine article, which, kind of just, gives the skim coat. I wanted to get a little bit deeper than that. So let's do that. So I've got a couple things. I follow Housing Wire. Housing Wire, if you guys ever want some good data to refer to find out, more of really like the nuts and bolts of what's happening, in this market, some good data analysis, if that's your thing. They do a pretty good job. They use a lot of Altos Research data. Altos Research, you can check out their website. They've a good source for data. It is a subscription. I don't have a subscription. You've got to set up a whole plan and the whole 9 yards. But Housing Wire uses a lot of their data. So this is kind of where the thumbnail for the video, with housing inventory up over 40% over last year. So we're talking about, again, it's steps of 40%. Sounds like a lot, but if it's 40% from already a low number, a big deficit to start with, it's good, but we're so far from being where we need to be be a balanced market or even a buyer's market. Again, certain areas I've already reached that, but it's a limited area. So they talk about the weekly housing inventory, compared to this week versus last year, this week, and the overall inventory. But I wanted to actually show you on the graph, because honestly, you know what? I like graphs better. And I think they're easier to digest than looking at a news article with numbers, for sure. So check this out. I thought this was pretty cool. This is, it illustrates where the inventory is. So you've got, since December 2019, right? So pre-pandemic, and you could see that inventory dropping down December 2020, June 2021. We got a little bit of a blip. And the reason for these blips, so you notice down the bottom where it says June and December, the end of the year, we're always going to see a blip. We're always going to see an increase in inventory because the buyer activity backs out during the holidays. During the months of November, usually, it starts around the middle of November to about the middle of January, the market always slows down. Always. Every year, this is just the seasonal changes of the market. And then there's always a big swing heading into the spring market, typically. So these little bumps I would consider normal. But what I'm more looking at is, what they're talking about is the big upswing in general. So we look at July 2024 versus July 2023, where you've got, a 7-day average or 90-day average, 41,000, and then you scoot up to a year later. It's a significant, it's a 40% increase year over year. There again, this number is way below where it needs to be. You're talking 61,000, where pre-pandemic is, almost 1 million. So I think in terms of trying to predict where we're headed, what the future holds, kind of where we're at now, and if you're planning to sell, if you're planning to buy, and oh gosh, is it, how far is it going to, drop, and what's the true state? And this is for the country. This is averaged, right? So this is 100%, lumping everybody together. So your local area, obviously real estate is local, so you want to look at your local area, but it gives us a good indicator of where things are, what direction the country is headed. I wanted to look at to show you the median price, which is also interesting because it's kind of interesting because it comes up and then it kind of dips down a little bit again. January, you can see the patterns. January 2023. There's always a little bit of a dip there, but then it's still hanging on. There's not a ton of difference from those peaks yet on a national average. And the reason for that, my estimation is the fact that, yes, there are certain parts of the country that are cutting prices, but then there's certain parts of the country that are hanging on. I mean, we're seeing some leveling out, but we have not seen any depreciation or drop in the Northeast, period. The big jumps forward have slowed. We're not seeing 8% appreciation, 9%, multiple way over asking, offers. But we're not seeing the opposite either, where down in Florida, down in maybe Arizona, down in Texas, where the market is different, it's much more saturated with inventory, and those prices are reflecting that. Thank you so much, C. Schultz. Your channel is going to take off. We're learning a lot. I'm so glad. My goal on this channel, I was just talking to Jackie Baker about this. And yes, I'm a real estate agent. And yes, I'm always putting it out there that I'm happy to refer people and, get you guys in touch with people and all the things. But truly, 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 as I'm sitting here, my goal with this channel is to educate my viewers and empower you guys. I really, really want to empower you guys. I want you guys to go out into the world and do buyer, whether you're buying or you're selling and working with your agents, and be able to advocate for yourself. And so that means a lot for you to say that. I really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Jackie, thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate you. Holiday season, the best time to buy a house. 110%. My parents, we moved here during the holidays. I was, I'm the oldest out of 5, so I think there was four of us. 4 kids in tow during the holiday season. We moved into our new house here in Plymouth. It was in the early 80s. And yeah, can you imagine moving into a new house with 4 kids right before the holidays? No, but my dad was transferred. So a lot of people move out of necessity, and that cycle never stops. I mean, I have been in this business for as many years as I have, and there's never been a time when I haven't stopped working. There's been ebbs and flows where it gets busier and then maybe a little bit less busy and then a little busier, but people don't stop needing to move. So I've banged this drum a lot, in terms of, people asking, well, when's a good time to buy? When's a good time to sell? Truly, truly, truly. My answer is always going to be the same. It's going to be, when is it the right time for you? It doesn't matter what the market's doing. It matters if the market impacts your finances, then it's not the right time. But if your finances are in order and your life is in order and all the other check boxes in terms of how it affects your family and your job and all the things, the market is irrelevant. The market is what it is, period. But you're going to always move, and people will move on jobs. They'll move because of, someone passes away or multitude of reasons. And because of that, people put houses on the market and the buyer activity absolutely dips down. So you can get a good deal. A good deal is relevant, I guess, in this market. You're not going to get a deal like you did, 10 years ago, per se. Not yet. But maybe, again, in those areas where they're seeing a little bit more of a balanced, heading towards a more balanced market. But the big thing is if you're competing against less buyers, then you are in a much better position to not pay way over asking. And maybe if you have a house, the longer a house sits on the market, that is the kiss of death for a property. The last thing you want to do is have that house sit on the market, longer than you need it to. The longer a house sits on the market, the wider the gap between what it lists for and it sells for. The reason why houses sell at or above asking is because it sells right away. So if you hit a week, 2 weeks that the house has been on the market, is it possible somebody will come in and offer you over asking? Possible. Is it plausible? Not really, because the traffic diminishes over time. And if a buyer who's looking in the off season starts to look for properties and they start seeing the house has been on the market for 30 days, 60 days, I would always say, you know what, you need to look at that history. Look to see if the seller has adjusted the price. I mean, the seller may have already adjusted the price. If the seller hasn't adjusted the price and the house has been in this market, if that seller has not adjusted the price and the house has been on the market for 30 days, you make an offer under asking. You do your comps and you get, if you're working with an agent, that agent should be able to advise you based on comps in the area on how much below asking. But the probability of you being able to do that during an off season when the seller doesn't have people banging down their doors, it goes way, way up, way, way up. Dolls and Nastasia, I'm learning a lot from you. We're planning to sell early next year. Super awesome. Super, super awesome. Hey, David. Good to see David in the house. For sure, for sure. So, I think that there was a few things. I pulled up an article real quick. I wanted to show you guys about, kind of like what's, heading into, if you are planning to do that. Actually, it's a good segue for planning into the future, for sure. Like what can you expect? This article had a few. This is from Narada Real Estate Investments. So don't panic, sell. Here's what current housing market trends predict. You know what? I'm going to make a side note on that. Unless you have a reason to sell, a panic sell, you're under the gun financially, you have to sell quick for a job. If there's a pressure out, within your four walls and within the dynamics of your life that directly affect you, then yes, then some people need to pull the trigger quickly. It is what it is. But please, please, please do not panic sell. We saw that happen during the pandemic where people were afraid of missing out on appreciation. They started to see certain things happen. And I can tell you that that's probably going to happen going forward as prices kind of softening. And there's the YouTubers and the news media saying prices are, they're dropping 50%, they're dropping 60% or whatnot. And it scares people. And then they panic sell because they're afraid of leaving money on the table. That is the worst thing you can possibly do. Again, if you have to sell because you can't afford it, no, you're not selling because of the market. You're selling regardless of whether you need to, whether the market is dropping or not, you're going to sell regardless. But that's why this caught my eye. I just wanted to little PSA there, little PSA. They just go into, and I'm going to just going to do you guys a quick favor here and see if we can blow that up a little bit, make it a little easier for you. It says, there was an article, they covered an article of realtor.com, from, the different reasons why, kind of break down the key points. It says mortgage rates are on the decline. This is kind of what's happening now. After 5 weeks of increases, mortgage rates have dropped for the second week in a row. I mentioned that earlier. Average rate for a 30-year fixed home went from 6.89 to 6.77. It bumped up a little bit, but this was ending July 13th. But you know what? It depends also who you talk to, and the area that you're in and the FICO score and all the things. But it's in that general range again. But there's small little tiny increments. Someone had asked me a couple weeks ago. They said they had asked about refinancing, and say you did buy a house last year and you had to get into the 7 point whatever, over 7%, when should I refinance? They asked. And the rule of thumb that I have always, now I'm not a financial guru advisor. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I'm not a licensed mortgage rep, but based on my experience with dealing with those professionals, the rule of thumb is 1%. 1%, because in order to refinance, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you closing costs. The title work has to be done. there's cost incurred when you refinance. So if you say the refinance cost you $5,000, you have to take that $5,000 and compare it to how much you actually saving, and then think about how many months it would take to recapture that expense. $5,000, if it's saving you $100 a month, now you got to figure out how many months am I going to have to hold this mortgage before I even break even, before I actually see the benefits. So the rationale for that is, if you go at least make it a 1%, then your savings will be significant enough to compensate for that expense. David says, homes are like donuts at Krispy Kreme. They are best when they are first hit the market. Yes, although I am up in Massachusetts, David, so it's Dunkin' for me. I hate to tell you. I did do Krispy Kreme. One of my trips down the southern states, I did try a Krispy Kreme. I'm kind of partial to Dunkin' Donuts, fresh Dunkin' Donuts. The only exception are the mom and pop stores. I actually lived in Louisiana for a couple of years when I was really little. That's why one of my dialects sometimes is messed up, because I was upper state New York and then Louisiana and Massachusetts and all over. And my best friend at the time, their family owned a small donut shop, and we would get fresh, like they came right out of the oil, powdered, the whole things. Those are the best. But next up would be Dunkin'. Patty says, but anywhere you go, it's going to be the same. True. Hello, Teresa. How are you? Hello. Good to see you here. Isn't it smart to wait for a 2-point drop before refinancing? I would say 1%. Yeah, I would go 1%. Talk to your mortgage rep. You got to look at what is best, obviously, for your situation. But the rule of thumb is typically 1%, depending on how long you're going to be in the house. It depends on how long you're going to be in the house and how much money you're going to save. If you're not going to save enough money, you're only going to be in the house for, say, another 3-4 years, and the savings, it also depends on how much your mortgage is, which will dictate how much money you save per month. And if you're only saving, $100 a month, and it's going to be a 7-year recapture, and you want to move in 3 years, you're not refinancing. You're gonna ride it out, because you won't see the benefit. Thank you very much, Morgan. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. And that's the truth, man. I have no mortgage, but realty fascinates me. Me too. And it makes me scratch my head because of the ridiculousness that is real estate sometimes. So that's just what it is. Let's see. Mortgage rates on decline. It says also sellers step back in. These are all things that, what was happening, in the market right now, what is trending and what is potentially going to continue to happen. Inventory on the rise, kind of all the things that we just were talking about. Prices staying stable, homes taking a little longer to sell. That's the other thing too, is, if you're looking to put your house on the market, again, make sure that you adjust your expectations. You do that by looking at your comparables. You do that by doing your homework. Hopefully you have a good agent that is doing that with you, so you can do it together, and you look at the properties that have sold around you. How long did they take to sell? If they took 2 weeks to get an offer, that's a good indication that, you probably shouldn't be disappointed if you don't get an offer the first weekend. If it takes 30 days to get their offer, the same thing. But it is a careful balancing act, because 30 days is a long time, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're overpriced and then 30 days comes and goes. Now you've lost a bunch of time. And that's where, the data, yes, the data is the data, the interpretation of the data. And someone pointed this out, actually, one of the comments on my videos, which is absolutely the 100% spot on, is, it's not just the data. And that's why, having someone help you, i.e. an agent, that would know how to interpret the data, is huge. Because knowing you have a house that sits on the market and it's 30 days, and 30 days is the average time for an offer, But the question is what do you need to do in that 30 days? Maybe you monitor the inventory, you monitor the activity online, you monitor the number of showings, you monitor the number of phone calls, you monitor the feedback from the showings. Maybe you don't get any showings. Having no showings is a huge indicator that maybe the price is not enough. If you're using an agent, how many phone calls they get? If they got 15 phone calls from agents and you got 2 showings, as another indicator. So it's all these things combined that you've got to constantly monitor. Again, hopefully you're doing it with your agent as a team. That the agent should be doing all the legwork for you and then keeping you informed. But again, I want to tell you this so that you know what to expect, what you should expect. And my opinion is I want you to expect a lot because you're paying these agents a lot of money. You should be getting a lot of value. 100%. Get what you pay for. Maddie B says there may be price drops in some suburb segments on the market, but you really need to know your market. Absolutely, positively, because every market is going to be, slightly different in the sense that there's different reasons for those price drops. And you might have new construction that's super saturated, but then, a couple miles down the road, there's a subdivision that's a pre-existing that's super high demand that isn't getting the price drops because there's fewer people selling and there's higher demand over there. Let's see. Someday touch on the HOA. Oh, HOA situation. Oh, HOA association. What would you like to know on that, Patty? I can talk about that for sure. Our HOAs up here are a little different than not different. It's just, the HOAs in the new construction that are in the southern states than there are up here in the Northeast. But there's a lot of garbage going on with those homeowners associations, a lot of mismanaged homeowners associations. And are you talking about the homeowners associations that are foreclosing on people? I know there's a lot of legislation that's in process right now to try to rectify that. And, we shall see. I have one here, a 55 plus community, and I'm mixed about it. So, here's the thing is the HOA, I really, really think that having an HOA, you really absolutely need to do your homework before, if you can, obviously if you're already living there, the horse has already left the barn. But if you're thinking about buying into one, you do your homework. Not all these HOAs are bad. They're not blanket. I disagree with these statements that say all HOAs are bad. All condos are bad. All rentals are bad. No one should rent. Everybody should buy. No, there's a butt for every seat, as my grandmother would say. It's like there's something for everybody. And some people, HOA is not a good idea. Some HOAs are terrible. Some HOAs are really good and well managed. And, an HOA, when you don't want to, you want the benefit of maybe you live in a modular home, 55 or 55 plus, or townhome, and you don't want to deal with lawn maintenance. You don't want to deal with exterior maintenance if they cover it. You maybe want to be in an area where there's, you want your own place, you want a condo, but you want to be in an area where there's people gathering. You want to be able to have maybe a pool, but you don't want to own a pool. The HOA will take care of that. They'll cover the expense, cover the insurance, cover the maintenance of the pool. You use it when you want to use it. And you don't have to worry about replacing the liner and the electric bill to run the pump and the insurance cost of securing it and worrying about it going on vacation, all the things. So I think there's a lot of benefits, but you got to be careful and you got to do your homework. And I would say you look at your budget, and when I'm working with a buyer that is thinking about making an offer, is looking into an HOA, the things that we request from the seller at the very, very beginning, we made this offer is subject to this. We're not asking it after. We want it within 7 days. Because sometimes it takes time for them to produce the documents if the agent doesn't have them already. 2 years, minimum 2 years financials. How are they managing their budget? What kind of reserves do they have? period. If they have no reserves, sometimes the banks won't grant the mortgage. Sometimes the banks will say, hey, we want to see this amount of money in the reserves before they even approve, because if it's too low, it becomes a high risk situation and they won't give you the mortgage. But if you have a property that is, 20 years old and they don't have enough money to cover, oh my gosh, the roof needs to be replaced, or the roads need to be repaved, or sprinkler system needs to be fixed, that is screaming special assessment. 100% special assessment. K. Michael Shepard, here in Georgia, HOA legislation failed. Oh man, Georgia was yeah, man. I watched when I was doing my research on the HOA video, or the insurance video. I was looking into some HOAs, and it was just awful. And if you guys want me to do a video on HOA, let me know. I can certainly do that if that's information that you guys would find helpful. Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers because again, I think that yeah, you know what? You just hit the nail on the head. Not anti-HOA, just anti-HOA corruption. Amen. Amen. Because a well-run HOA is valuable. It's all in. People will pay for value. People will pay for value. I will pay for value. I will dig in my pocket deeper if I feel it's worthwhile. I will save and buy. I'm partial to Toyota, and Toyotas are more expensive than Chevys or Fords, and nothing against those cars by any means. But for me, it's worth it to me to wait if I can wait and save and pay more. But if Toyotas started having more problems, they didn't last as long. They had the repair records went down the toilet. I'm not buying a Toyota anymore. Now the extra expense of that car is no longer worth it. If Nordstrom started pricing things and selling products like Walmart, not that there's anything wrong with Walmart. I do my grocery shopping at Walmart, but there's a different expectation, right? You go to Nordstrom for a reason. You go to Nordstrom for that extra experience. And if you don't get that experience, if an HOA fails you, it's a waste of money. So they got to walk the walk. Karen says an HOA was formed after the purchase of an investment property. Are you required to be part of an HOA if there wasn't an HOA at the time of purchase? Oh man, I can say I've never heard of that before. I would be very interested to know what an attorney says about that. To have something like that, you would need to have residents sign off on it. I would think, because you're talking about a governing party that typically is attached to a deed. When you have an HOA that collects monthly, they are part of your deed. They can put a lien on your property. They can foreclose on your property. They can levy it because it is a requirement on a mortgage that HOA fee gets paid on a regular basis. But if it's after the fact and that wasn't attached, I mean, what I have seen are voluntary HOAs. So that's what we have. We have a lot of those up here in my area, where you'll have a community association that's formed. And the community association is usually like in a beach area. And we have a lot of beaches here, a lot of ocean beaches. In the beach area, the group of people will get together and they'll do, the Ocean Beach Association. And it's $100 a year. And the $100, a year goes towards cleaning up the beach in a yearly block party or something. And you can belong if you want or not, but it's voluntary. So there's no lien on the property. They can't force you to pay. They can't force you. It's not attached to your property. So that is very interesting. I would be very interested to find out what the offshoot of that is. Patty says we have one of the best run HOAs here. Where did you tell me where you're from, Patty? I have short-term memory. today. It was one of those days. I apologize if you told me where you're from. I know you probably did. I apologize. But that's awesome. That's so awesome. Morgan says we are going to do a 55 plus community in Palm Springs area, $350 a month, cable, internet, and trash covered. I mean, that sounds pretty good. Palm Springs area, $350 a month cable. That's a pretty common down there that they include utilities. And then I'm assuming that they have like resources, like not resources, amenities of some sort down there. But I mean, $350 a month up here is pretty reasonable. I don't know how it compares down there, but I mean, it's a fixed expense. It's a lot easier to balance to do a budget and stick to a budget if you have fewer variable expenses. You have predictable expenses and predictable income. It's a heck of a lot easier to stay on track and weather the storm of the grocery bill going up a little bit or a lot lately, for sure. Overjoyed you. Welcome back. Good to see you again on this live stream. Just got elected to HOA after a rogue board member mismanaged all the funds. Oh man, scary. And the money was spent, not much recourse. That is, I'm sorry about that. I'm very, very sorry about that because it is hard to track that down. Once the money's gone, it's gone. And, I think that, having a, HOA, forming an HOA, when you're looking at a community self-managed HOA, when you are, when a group gets together and they decide we're going to bring in an outside company to manage the books and collecting the fees and because we don't want to get into dealing with that month to month, you got to be super careful. You got to vet those out. You got to do background checks and the whole nine yards. But it's probably far less risky than having an individual member or members of a self-managed HOA. It becomes much, 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 much riskier, unfortunately. Please do. Yes, I'm going to put that down. I'm going to actually write that down. I knew there was a reason I put a pad of paper here before the live stream. I says, I got a feeling I'm going to have to write something down. Perfect. I spoke at several state capitol hearings on this issue. Fantastic. Issue involved placing HOA fees into personal bank accounts, faking HOA fees at closing, refusing crucial repairs. That is the same to me as stealing money, and you should have some jail time on that. That people, I mean, that's disgusting, in my opinion. In this day and age where things are so hard, people work so hard for their money, and housing is the affordability is so hard in general, just to survive, and then your money disappears. Somebody robbed you, basically. Thank you for sharing that. Max, hello, Jen. Our new agent has been a huge blessing. Awesome. We sold our house for a genuine full asking price cash offer. Let's go. Woohoo. We closed this Friday. Thank you so much for all the great tips. Oh, that is making me smile ear to ear. Let's go. Awesome. Just made my day. Would you have to volunteer your home into it if it's new? Don't do it. Yes, I would agree. I would 100% agree. With a newly formed HOA. No, when you look at our insurance doubles, our HOA was raised 40% in 2 years. Oof, ouch. Ouchie, ouch, ouch. Jam, in an HOA that has grandfathered homes in subdivision before HOA. Yeah, that unfortunately happens because it gets written in when they form the subdivision. Usually there's a clause in there that says that they, as new homes come in, or if they build new homes, then those are going to be automatically included in the existing subdivision. Sometimes they will cap it. And I have seen situations where you'll have different phases and different HOAs. We have a couple communities, very large communities here, that they're all geographically in the same area, but they have multiple different HOAs because they were formed at different times, and for multiple reasons, different reasons, they wanted to close and complete the subdivision. They wanted to cap it, complete it, close off the HOA, and then start fresh with a new HOA. And sometimes that means an entire new HOA management company. Sometimes it's the same management company, managing the same, the different HOAs, but it's the same management company kind of, operating the both. But for sure. Hey guys, I'm going to press pause here for a second because I got a little surprise actually. Somebody just popped into my green room that I want to bring in. And I'm super stoked about this. What a surprise. I'm not expecting this. Hello, Miss Jackie Baker.
Hi, Miss Jen. Sorry.
Oh my God, as they say in North Jersey.
Oh my God. I had to chime in on this HOA thing. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, please do. Yes.
Because I'm putting in the comments. I'm like, you know what? I have the link. I'm chiming in. So the thing with these HOAs also, you recall I did a video about how they're foreclosing on properties too. How Yes.
I think that's where I'm grabbing my knowledge base is probably from your video.
Where else would you get it from? Get it?
Right.
But there is the gentleman that commented on your about the going to the state legislators and things like that about trying to get or spoken state capitals regarding these problems with these HOAs. They are trying to pass laws now to limit the power of these HOAs. I mean, there was a community in Colorado. I forget how many homes it was. I think it was like 50 homes or something like that. The HOA foreclosed on for missed payments, HOA payments, monthly payments, and fines.
Holy smokes!
So
holy smokes!
Yeah, and it's all over the place. I mean, Florida, North Carolina just passed a law to limit these HOAs from taking people's homes. So,
well, it's almost like these HOAs are becoming like mini corporations. These they're becoming greedy little mini corporations, and you have opportunists. Yeah, that word correctly. That take advantage of the situation. And if you have homeowners that are maybe not paying attention, that they're not as astute, they're not in tune with what's happening, they take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah.
They take advantage and they leverage their power, right? They totally leverage their power. So
absolutely,
that is bonkers, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally taking people's homes away, foreclosing on them and turning around and selling them. Yeah. Over missed payments, over missed HOA payments. Like that's just, it's so unacceptable. Yeah. Anyway.
It sends a message like this. The thing that frustrates me is that, like I was saying earlier, like I think, HOAs can be a great thing.
Yeah.
It prevents your neighbor from putting on a fluorescent orange garage door.
Right.
It keeps your neighbor from having chickens in their front yard. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And busted up cars on the road. You know what I mean? Like there is legitimate benefit. I mean, I would never want a pool in my house. Too much work. Mm-hmm. But would it be nice to be able to have access anytime I want to a pool that is not a public pool? Heck yeah. So I think there's definite benefit, but the problem is with that kind of stuff happening across the country, people are just like, oh no, they're all bad news. And that's
unfortunate, but sad. Just like real estate agents, right? There's a few bad ones and everybody paints a broad picture that all real estate agents are bad. This is what we're doing with HOAs too. So
100%. You are correct, Madame. You are correct.
Yeah, she did. Thanks, Patty.
I think I have a thing here. There we go.
Yep.
Let's see. Hey, Jackie. Great to see you in Jen's chat. If you and Jen do an HOA vid live stream, reach out to me. Search my name. I'm working on launching an HOA awareness.
Oh
man.
There you go.
I'm just gonna bookmark here. Well, we are gonna Michael Shepard. Yes,
That's for sure, Michael. I would love to talk.
100%. Thank you, my friend. Awesome. Yes, Patty. There's Jackie in the house.
Here's now. I know. Don't you just have it? Love it. Just you love how I just like squeezed it in here and.
I just, you know what? Anytime. I thought I was like, hey, you know what? Here's a link. Whatever. If you're in town, if you're in town, you want to drop by. Then
and I did.
And so, but here we are. Thank you for taking time. And if you have to bail, just let me know. You know, you're
no worries.
It's nice to have you here. Dolls and Nastasia agree with needing more info on HOA. I'm definitely going to do a video on that. It's made absolutely. I'm hearing you guys loud and clear that you guys want more info and input, and I'll do some research. We plan to move to MT. Okay, my brain's not working. What's MT? Montana. Considering condo, we're both seniors and having snow removal, etc., isn't attractive. Yes. You know, so honestly, I'm about as like, you know, I do all my own DIY stuff. I was out, my body feels it. I was out in the yard for both days this weekend, getting caught up because I was so busy. I'm behind on my yard work and edging around the trees, and I was on the hands and knees and all that kind of stuff. And I enjoy it. I do enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. And I got to thinking, like, eventually someday, I mean, I'm only 52, so it's in the future. But eventually, you know, the kids move out. I'm not going to want to be here, and I'm not going to want to do yard work anymore. And and I'm not going to have to do snow removal. Although down here on the South Shore, close to Cape Cod, our snow is not anywhere near like it was years ago. We don't get that many snowstorms anymore.
Yeah, same here.
Currently, I've let the community. Yeah.
I currently live
in pretty awesome. You know what? Thank you for that, because I think that there's okay. We'll go on a little bit left field. I'm not doing political, no, but there's this culture in society, right? There's this movement, Jackie. There's this crisis, I guess, or whatnot. People just complain.
Yep.
And when my kids were little, I would say to them, do not come to me with a complaint without a proposed solution. So they would say, you know, I don't want to clean my room. Don't tell me you don't want to, and come to me and say, I don't want to clean my room now, but I can do it tomorrow at, you know, whatever time, whatever.
Right.
Propose. Okay, let's talk about it. You know, I think that there's you know, there's an ownership of the problem at that point. You're like, okay, so it's like, no, I don't want to do it. You figure it out. No.
Exactly.
No. And everybody's like, it's not my problem. It's not my problem. I'm not happy. I'm going to complain about it, but I'm not willing to do anything to make any difference. And that you don't get anywhere. Nothing gets solved that way. Okay. It's strength in numbers.
Exactly.
If you know, my feeling is either if you complain about it, do something about it. If you're not willing to do something about it, then you don't say anything, period. You know, proactivity. So I very much take my proverbial hat off to you. Okay. Michael Shepard.
Yes.
For being proactive. Good on
you, Michael. Yep.
Kids follow in your shoes. Would like to know what to ask for, look for. Yes, I can totally do that, because we have quite a few condo associations here in Plymouth. We have some voluntary, but we have a lot, especially lately. We have the Pine Hills, which is award-winning, started about 10, gosh, time goes by so fast. I think it's probably more than 10 years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. It was the largest mixed use community in the country for a hot second. It was, you know, top.
Really?
Yeah. And they have multiple HOAs. So we have quite a few HOAs. And so I'm well-versed in making offers, advising buyers on what to look for. I'm not a contract lawyer, you know, in terms of reviewing those, but I know what to ask for, and I know what to ask the attorney to do. and what you should look out for. Maxie, years ago, we were in a neighborhood with an HOA. They played favorites.
Oh, I can see that.
Good move, man. Good.
Yeah, good for you to get out. I can see that happening for sure.
Never again will I belong to an HOA. See, that's the sad. That makes me sad.
But it's like high school in a way, you know? And you get these people on the school boards on the HOA boards that used to be, you know, captain of the football team and they're in high school and they feel like they got all the power again. I don't know.
Oh man, that's a good analogy. That's actually, you know what? You're not wrong.
No.
You're not wrong.
Michael,
he's going to get your kids to say that, Jackie. If we can only get our kids to agree with us that way,
right? That would never happen. What is this Michael saying? Not all the payments are missed. They get the checks, but refuse to cash them if they are. If you are the target for a home snatching, that's what happens. Stop. Are you kidding me?
That sounds like a TV movie or something.
Oh my gosh.
Or like, what was that thing Geraldo Rivera? Remember that guy?
Oh yeah.
You know, you remember that guy?
Yeah.
You know, you like go in with the camera and be like busting in and
right?
Like, oh, you stole
money. With Al Capone's vault or something like that. Remember that? That was a big dud. Michael, that's incredible. I would love to talk to you, Michael, more about that. That's insane that they would do that.
We definitely got to have him on our Michael live stream. Have him on
definitely.
Again. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Overjoy, we don't do fines here. We also have an issue with a lot of elderly folks on fixed incomes who can't keep up with the increasing HOA. That I can't even tell you how much that makes me angry.
I know.
Insurance. I talked to a couple people like in Virginia lately, and I'm like, insurance.
You know, I say insurance. Like I know the I don't get that. I know it's a Southern,
sorry,
Southern friends, but yeah.
This is why I mispronounce everything because my brain is like dialect impressionable or something. I know.
Yeah,
that way I guess. Insurance is now 30% of our monthly fees. Don't much money.
Yes.
Ouch. That's
just stupid insurance that's killing everybody.
And my video that I did last week, I kind of did a deep dive into like how that works and the implications and learned a lot myself, to be honest, in terms of how the insurance company spreads the risk to everyone. Everyone. Doesn't matter if you're in a danger zone, wildfire, flood zone, whatever, everybody pays. And it's absolutely that's a whole business model that's broken.
Yep.
Broken.
Sure. It's also used to make sure you can't vote.
Jeez, oh man.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Wow. We're just like,
like
Patty said, we opened up a can of worms.
We did.
Whatever.
And I'm fascinated because I am just, I love this conversation. I love this we're having here.
This is awesome.
West Colville.
Oh, that's by me. West Colville.
Okay.
West Colville is about 40 minutes from me. Yes. Great towns, Patty. And West Essex for sure. I like West Essex.
Folks are trying to age in place and no longer can afford one's affordable retirement dream in their 80s, 50-year-old building. This is, that itself, there are the retirees, boomers that are maybe not quite retired, right? That built up and they have retired, that have built up equity, that have been in their house for 40 years plus, and they have all this equity. And then there's the other side that people in the housing market don't like to talk about, don't hear enough about, are the folks that are literally surviving on beans and rice. They're going hungry. They can't afford to live. They can't afford to spend ridiculous money on groceries. It's awful. Jackie Baker. If Janet Papal, welcome. If holidays is the best time to buy, maybe worst time to sell, I should be ready by February. I'm in Northwest Virginia. House to sell is in Pittsburgh, PA. If holidays is the best time to buy, maybe the worst time to sell. You know what? I think it just goes back to
Goes back,
Uh,
if you price your house well, it'll sell, you know,
if
and
it's
you,
the right time,
yeah,
it's the right time for you. Because the other thing is if you are, um, if you're buying the property, it's a one for one. So in other
yep,
words, if you sell and it's maybe not the highest, if it's less than what it would sell for in the spring market, where property values typically spike up a little bit because there's more interest and more traffic. Well, if you sell in the spring, well, guess what you're going to buy in the spring, which means it's a break even situation, more or less, right? You sell high, buy high. Um, if you're doing the same during the winter time, during the holiday time, it's the same type of situation, but it really depends. It
yep,
really, really depends. I mean, around here, and you might be in this category being in Pittsburgh. Honestly, a lot of people hold off because they don't want to deal with snow removal. I mean, when you live in an area that has snow, um, you've got to deal with liability of people walking in the front door. If somebody slips on ice and falls or gets hurt, you know what I mean? Then you are, while they're trying to see your house, they're trying to tour your house. That's a problem.
mm-hmm,
You have outdoor features like a pool or something of that nature, and they can't expect it because of the snow. That's a problem. So,
right.
case by case. Another HOA. Can't find many non-HOA properties in South Florida.
I think a lot of these new communities that are being built, I think majority of them are going to have HOAs. Like we have our properties down in Delaware. Every new community that's popping up, they all have HOAs. So
Welcome, Janet. Welcome, welcome. This is great. Thank you so much for everybody participating. This is awesome.
yeah,
Overjoy, watch out for people who want to be on an HOA. None of us wanted to do this. Honestly, nobody ever wants to be on an HOA. Like occasionally you have the retired, like I have nothing to do. But it's usually like you're a moderator for bickering.
yeah.
A lot of
No,
fun
thank
guys.
you.
What do you think, Jackie?
Nope.
Just had to get a power hungry control freak off the board of directors before we went into receivership.
Oh my God. No thanks.
Michael, sure.
Michael, I'll shut up about that. You don't need to shut up, Michael. We love hearing this.
Started to go local and have local news coverage. Yikes!
Good for you.
Overjoyed says we switched management companies. Had a big issue with checks not being deposited correctly. Wow! Some people send checks to management companies. Others do direct deposit to bank. How do you feel about that, Jackie? Like in a situation where you're questioning the management abilities of a management company,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I would go through the trouble of maybe getting like a certified check, a certified mail. I have proof that the check was delivered or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yes.
feel like I would want proof that the check was delivered.
Well, we've
Monthly
always
basis.
done with our two properties, we've done direct deposit, and that hasn't been an issue. So we find that easier to track down. Honestly, I mean, that's how we've done it. So
Yeah, I
but
suppose that from a security standpoint, that's probably the safest way, right?
yeah,
And you have documented proof that that's been
Mhm.
the money has been transferred.
Yep.
Um, yeah, no joke. Consider these greedy HOAs to be similar to a bad, corrupt local government.
Seriously.
100%, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, look how this live stream just like spun into this whole thing, Jen. Into HOAs. You're talking about the housing market. We're into HOAs.
100%,
I love it.
110%.
Love it. Love it.
She meant to say meant to sell, meant to sell? Not meant to sell. Worst time to
Worst
sell.
time to sell? I don't like Jen was saying, I don't think it's the worst time to sell. I in the winter time, but because if you do price it right, it will still sell fast. I think you still get your price. But the key thing is pricing it right according to the market. Don't be greedy.
Yep.
So
110%.
yeah.
And Jan says, good, I won't be ready till February, commuting to the house 6 hours each way. Ouch.
Whoa.
Ouch.
That's crazy.
That would make me want to sell like yesterday.
Really? I know. My God.
Can you imagine? Although, I don't know, the whole idea of commuting, period, I'm Jackie, I'm spoiled. I'm spoiled because 28 years I've always worked from home, my home office. So my commute is like 2 minutes.
Yeah, huh?
No, 2 seconds.
I know. I haven't commuted in years. My office is like 10 minutes from me. My husband, on the other hand, hour and a half each way. I don't know how he's doing it. There's a lovely traffic, New Jersey traffic, just
100%. 100%.
Stinks.
You know what? I wanted to, I want to be respectful of your time, Jackie. And so if you need to jump at any time, feel free. But if you want to stay on, I kind of promised that I would answer a couple questions from the commission video. And just some basic, just a couple questions, just because I had mentioned that. And wanted to fulfill my obligation, fulfill what I promised. So, I posted this video 2 weeks ago about the changes that are coming on August 17th per the Department of Justice lawsuit and the National Association of Realtors settlement agreement that put into effect changes on how commissions are handled and changes in how the process of selling and buying a house is going to be affected. And these changes are, they're not optional. A lot of these changes that they're laying down, it is what it is. And there's a ton of confusion, and it is confusing. And the confusion is not on the consumer end. Okay. It starts on the way that the changes that are proposed from the top of the food chain. So the top of the food chain is making these changes. We're interpreting them and trying to break them down as best we possibly can. And regardless of the hours and hours and hours I spent researching and outlining and trying to put together the video, it's I know it's overwhelming and confusing, and I will be doing more videos for further clarify. But I wanted to. There was a couple questions that kept popping up on the comments, and one of the comments was, can a buyer attend an open house without an agent? And 100% yes. Okay, so a buyer, when they're working with an agent, it is now going to be required. I'll be very, very clear on this. After August 17th, anywhere in the country, regardless of what your agent tells you, the federal law is that an agent must have a buyer agency agreement with that buyer. The purpose of that is they are requiring the buyer agent, they're forcing, because the buyer agents couldn't do it on their own. That's when the federal government steps in and says, well, you can't do it on your own, so we're going to force you to do it. They're forcing the buyer agents to have a conversation with the buyer. And the buyer agent and the buyer have to have a written agreement. It is not, and this is super important to know, it is not regulated how the buyer agent gets compensated. So I know this was confusing in the video, and for rightfully so, because, and the reason being it's confusing is because it's not a set way of doing things, right, Jackie? It's not like, hey, it's going to be this, you're going to be charged a fee and that's it. No, you can structure that agreement however you want. And that is going to be new territory that buyers are not accustomed to at all. And I get the fact that, a buyer, you guys go in and it's like, well, I got enough to figure out where I want to live and how I'm going to do the offer. And now I got to deal with this. Hopefully you have an agent that breaks it down to make it digestible and easy. My suggestion is, if you're going to an open house and you have a buyer agent that you want to work with, or maybe you were approached by a buyer agent or whatnot, or maybe the seller said that buyers can't, and this is the seller's prerogative. If the seller, for whatever reason, says buyers have to have an agent to come in my front door because of liability reasons and all the things, you don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You can do a one property agreement until you figure out whether you want to actually hire this agent full time.
Yes, that is true.
Easiest way. That is the easiest way. And it's one property. You say, if I buy this property, I'll pay you X. And then you can negotiate with the buyer's agent help. You can negotiate that fee compensation from the seller to help pay that agent so it doesn't all come out of your pocket. But if you don't want a buyer agent, you don't have to. I do think, Jackie, I think I want to make this super clear. And this is why I wanted to bring it up on the live stream, because I think this is outside the realm of a video, but I want to make it super clear. And Jackie, you and I are on the same page on this.
Mm-hmm.
I truly, truly, truly don't care whether he's a buyer agent or not. The purpose of you're buying a house in Virginia, East Tallahassee, San Francisco, doesn't involve me. I don't care if he was a buyer agent. That's up. I have no gain of trying to talk anybody into using a buyer agent.
Right.
Would you concur? Right? This does not, I have no skin in the game. So there's no benefit to me to try to talk anybody into an agent. Period. This is a personal decision. Do I think a good buyer agent has a ton of value? Yeah. When you know what hits the fan and you got problems to solve, that's where a good buyer agent is going to go to bat for you. Or you have a difficult seller that you're negotiating with, a good buyer agent that has experience is going to give you suggestions that you didn't even think about, and is going to have creative ways of negotiating and creative problem solving when the mortgage situation goes sideways.
Exactly.
Required. It's a personal decision. So can you go to an open house? Yes, but just look on the listings online and check and see if there's a requirement, and it'll be listed publicly. Hey, buyers welcome. Buyers must be attended, must be accompanied by an agent. You just got to check that ahead of time, but you should be able to. Do you have anything to add to that, Jackie?
No, you explained it pretty well. Because we've been having this conversation in my office. A lot of people are raising this whole thing because here in Jersey, it goes into effect next Thursday, August 1st. So everyone's freaking out. Like,
hold that thought for a second, because I know you and I lose their thoughts like crazy these days. It's an age thing, unfortunately. Thank you, perimenopause. I'm going to just sidebar and say that legally it's August 17th. Check your state.
Check with your state. Thank you. Yes. So
some states are rolling these out because it is state driven. A state can say today, July 23rd, this is what needs to happen today.
Yes.
Waiting until August 17th. So check with your state. Okay. That was
thank you for saying that. Yes. So Jersey, it's August 1st. And we were told we actually have to display. I don't know if this is a federal thing, but we actually have to display at an open house, because I have our house coming on the market next week. We have to display like a post, like a sign or whatever, explaining that I'm representing the seller. Coldwell Banker's representing this seller, and blah, blah, blah. They're like this whole spiel thing it's like a legal thing.
Been doing that for years.
Out to explain to the buyers as they're walking into the open house who's representing the seller, basically, which is me and Coldwell Banker. So so that has to be on display at an open house.
Which is good, but can we just be honest?
Yeah.
As a home buyer is walking through the front door, they're not going to read a sign.
No, they're not.
They're looking at the walls and the carpet and where they're putting their furniture and whether the house is awesome or not or whatever. They are not stopping to read a sign.
And we have to say to each person, I'm here, I'm representing, the sellers of this address and blah, blah, blah. Like we have to actually say to each person who I'm representing. It's so bizarre. But, but buyers can still attend the open house without an agent. It's not an issue, because we thought initially when this whole thing was coming, as like about a month or so ago, like buyers are going to have to sign an agreement, and unrepresented buyers are going to have to sign an agreement right then and there with the listing agent, right? But you don't have to. They don't have to do that.
Buyers are not going to be forced to do anything. Just like a seller is not forced to use an agent. If you are capable, if you're comfortable with handling all facets of a real estate transaction, no one is saying legally you have to use a real estate agent. The dynamic though is it's just like anything else. It's like, do I want to take care of these car repairs and it's myself, or do I want to hire a professional who will take the headache off my hands and do a better job?
Right.
And that's that because they have experience.
Yes.
Because they have experience. It is impossible for someone to sell their house on their own. I would go toe to toe for someone who is selling their house on their own, buying a house on their own, versus my experience of helping people buy and sell over 800 times. I have seen things that they will never see.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is.
That's right.
It is what it is. I can problem solve better than the person that has not sold and bought 800 times. It's just the way it is.
Right.
You're comfortable with that because you're like, okay, well, I'll manage. And if, I have somebody who wants to buy the house already, whatever, there's nothing, you can do that. You can totally do that. Overjoyed says, I would hate to sign a contract with a buyer's agent only to find out they are bad. Yes, yes, and yes. I agree with you. I remember when the commission was split in the seller agent fee. And you know what, Overjoyed? I am overjoyed. Haha, you see what I did there? Sorry. Getting a little punchy.
That's okay.
Silly. I am overjoyed about the fact that a lot of agents have already left the industry and are leaving the industry.
Oh, yes. Yes,
they cannot demonstrate their value.
That's
they
right.
are completely overwhelmed with the fact that now they have to talk to a buyer. When a buyer says, hey, before I pay you this fee or agree to anything, what are you going to do for me? What's your credentials? How long have you been in the business? How many transactions have you had? Have you sold properties in this area? Are you familiar with this area? All the things. They're terrified. They don't know how to handle that because they never had to do that in the past. And they're getting out of Dodge because it's not free money anymore. The way it's always been done, the buyer agent fee was guaranteed because the seller was ponying up the money. Now the buyer agent fee is not guaranteed. And I think, honestly, it's going to be a pain to iron out all the kinks, but I think it's a good idea. I think we're heading in the right direction. Julie says buyers will start not using their own agents, and I don't see it as a bad thing. I think in certain circumstances, Julie, my concern, and this is just, this is going to sound super biased because I'm a real estate agent. Of course it is, right? Yep. And I'm going to try to make it like as sincere as possible because it's based on what I've seen in my career. I think there's going to be a ton of people that are going to get burned because they're going to get in over their heads. They're not going to be able to negotiate. It's actually, there are statistics, and you can look this up, do your own research. Statistically, people that sell their own homes make less money. Period. Yep. You make less money when you sell your own home. You would think it wouldn't be true because you're saving the commission on the real estate agent, but it has to do with it doesn't have anything to do with exposure and all that kind of stuff. It's all about negotiation. You're trying to buy your house, and what if you have issues at a home inspection? Jackie and I do a podcast. We just did one this afternoon where we she researches Reddit stories about transactions that go sideways. And oftentimes it's because of bad agents, not foreshadowing, all that kind of stuff, but not always. And when things go sideways and you're negotiating this on your own, I think a lot of buyers are going to get burned, Jackie.
1,000,000%. I agree with you. I understand what Julie's saying here too. It's not a bad thing. They won't use their own agent. So, okay, it's now they're going to go directly to the listing agent. Now you're in a dual agency situation, and that can get complicated because at the end of the day, that listing agent has their fiduciary responsibility to the seller. Yep. So you're not getting full representation if you're, as a buyer, going to the listing agent.
Let's say that one more time, Jackie. And that's super, super, super important because there are listing agents that are going to act like your friend. They're going to be nice people. They're going to be nice people, and they're going to be,
How many do it now to say, oh, if you work with me, I'll help you get the house. There are agents that have done that.
Or if you don't want to buy this one, I'll help you buy another one, and they come back to that one, and it gets
So you got to be careful. So like step back. Back in what was it, the 80s, 90s? The reason they changed this back then where the seller paid the commission for both agents is because buyers were going to the listing agent and they weren't getting proper representation. That's why that whole thing came to be, where the commission was going to be going towards the buyer's agent. Now we're back to this again. And if it is going to push people to go directly to the listing agent, look, you can do whatever you want, but buyer beware. You're not going to get, you think they're going to negotiate, like they're going to help you negotiate against their client? They're not.
So that brings up a great point, because back in the day,
the old lady, come on.
Back in the day, back like 15 years ago, right? So Massachusetts is, I'll set the stage. Massachusetts is an attorney state. What that means is when you buy a property in Massachusetts, buy and sell, a closing attorney is required. A closing attorney checks the title and handles the paperwork. Some states do title companies. Massachusetts does closing attorneys. Okay. The closing attorney takes care of the closing side of the transaction and will handle all the necessary items that you need for facilitating the closing. And, I would say, when I got into business, 96, probably for about, a good 10 years or less, sellers didn't have attorneys. Why they need attorneys? You have a contract, you review the contract was not complicated. And then the agent would help them negotiate the contract, negotiate the home inspection. And then you get to closing, and the closing is like, okay, deed, title work, the closing attorney handles all that. Well, then time went on and the contracts got more complicated. And the buyer's attorney, the attorney that's representing the bank that does the closing, is also reviewing the purchase agreement for the buyer. And that agreement started to get bigger and more language. And as real estate agents, we are not attorneys.
No, we're not.
And not review and interpret all the nuances of a contract to make sure that the contract was evenly weighted between a buyer and a seller.
Yep.
So as the buyer side got heavier and heavier, now the seller side, it was, geez, I really think you should have an attorney. Geez, now it's customary that the seller have an attorney and the buyer have an attorney.
Same here in Jersey.
Is it required for a seller to have an attorney? It is not. However, the seller can't interpret the contract unless they're an attorney themselves. I can't interpret every little nuance of that contract. I'm not allowed to do that. License if I do that. So that's what you're dealing with. And when you're dealing with, a listing agent and no buyer agent to help leverage that to even the scale, that listing agent, that's an astute, sharp, sophisticated, maybe even sleazy, who knows, listing agent, unknowingly you could be easily taken advantage of.
Right.
And talked into prices that you weren't expecting, contingencies that might be left out that you should have. There's a lot of nuances that it gets
it gets hairy. It gets hairy when you get into dual agency. People need to be totally aware of that one.
I would not recommend it. I would, if you're going to go see the listing agent and you don't have an agent, if the agent says the words dual agent, before they even finish the sentence, say no, thank you. It's better to, if you absolutely don't want to do anything to do with a real estate agent, at the very least, consult with your attorney. The attorney is not going to help you with and I've talked to attorneys. Jackie, I know you have too. I have talked to attorneys with this whole, when the lawsuit was announced, because a lot of people are saying they're going to turn to the attorneys. I have talked to a lot of attorneys all over. They have stated clearly they are not going to represent buyers. They are not going to go to home inspections. They're not going to answer questions on home inspections. They're not going to negotiate offers. They're not going to negotiate if there's an issue from an inspection. They're not going to negotiate if there's an issue from a mortgage company. They're not going to help negotiate or problem solve if an issue comes from a mortgage company that needs to be, maybe, you need an addendum and you didn't know that, that's the only way to solve this particular problem. they are not
Yeah.
going to do it because they don't have time to do it.
They don't have time to do it, but the attorneys rely on us for all the information pertaining to that deal, right? Anytime like something comes up on the inspection, I'm communicating with the attorney, telling them firsthand, this is, we go through the report and I walk them through it and tell them explain to them what's going on. Final walkthroughs. I cannot tell you how many final walkthroughs I have been on the phone with the attorney when we've run into issues and the walkthrough. And then, then they get on the phone with their attorney. Like this, like they again, like you say, they don't have time. They can't physically be there to look at the home and to make sure everything is supposed to be the way it's supposed to be, especially when it comes to that final walkthrough.
So I have a story on that real quick of short story. So I had a situation earlier this year where I was representing a seller, and this seller, I did not help her buy the house. It was a referral, and so the property was new to me. So she was moving out of the property, so on and so forth. There was a lot of stuff, there, whatever. She did a good job getting the stuff out, but there was some stuff left behind. And the buyer agent, who was a good agent. It was a pleasure to work with him, actually, but he did his job at the final walkthrough. And he says, Jen, there is stuff, these items still in the, behind the shed. And there's stuff that's tucked in the bushes. It's on the property. And, there's a pile of other, whatever. The buyer really doesn't and shouldn't take ownership of that. Like they want that to be dealt with. Well, this is a day before, like literally day before closing. There was no time to have somebody come in and remove it. So I talked to the agent. I said, what would you consider reasonable? I proposed a solution. And, I said, would the buyers be amenable to this? The seller hasn't agreed to anything. I have to talk to the seller, but in preparation of that, would they be agreeable to, a credit, and then they take on the responsibility of dealing with them themselves. And it was a small, it was like $500 or something for, the cost of like a dumpster or something. So I called the seller and told her what the situation was. And I'm like, listen, they have a legitimate issue. This is a legitimate issue. The purchase and sale says free of all debris. There's no skirting. Like this is what was agreed to in the contract. I said, here's my proposal, and then you don't have to deal with it. She said, that sounds great. That's perfect. I don't want to, $500, good. And then she said to me, she says, I wish you were my agent when I bought the house because no one told me that I needed to have that stuff removed. Now, there was an agent, crummy agent, obviously, right? Now you can interview your agent, and now you will interview your agent to make sure you don't have that crummy agent. But if you were going at that house alone, right? Would you have been able to negotiate that way? Or maybe like because she said to me, she says, I was caught up in the moment and I really just want to get in the house. So I just took it as is. But then years went by and she never addressed it because she got busy and the stuff she never got rid of it and never had to deal with it.
Right.
So that's the whole thing. That buyer agent went to bat for his buyer. So now that buyer didn't have to deal with it.
Exactly.
Sorry, I got an itchy nose. I apologize. Lee says, do you think buyer's agents will adopt a flat fee for service? That, question mark, because I know that's something that I mentioned in the video. And I think the thing that I was trying to do in the video is give you proposals of what might happen.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of creativity. Just like there's a fee for service discount brokerages, right, Jackie? There's discount brokerages now that'll say, okay, you want full service, you're going to hire this type of an agent. But if you want just this, it's this amount of money. And I think you're going to see the exact same services on a buyer agent side.
Yes.
See what we're going to have to see what opens up. I think there's going to be things, but it's going to have to be a wait and see.
It's going to be, it's going to be an amazing several months when see how this whole thing shakes out.
I think it's more than several months. My opinion.
Yeah.
Maddie says, are open door listings common in your area? Yeah, not up here.
No, not up here. I've seen like one or two in my area. Like we never really see them. Yeah,
no, we don't either. Yeah. That's frustrating. Only a realtor can access the app to get in. I think that's when I'd probably, if you didn't have an agent, keep in mind too that your agent, when you sign a contract, it's due. The commission is due when you find a property. You don't find a property.
Really?
You don't.
Wait.
No, when you close on a property.
Yeah, when you close, I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. When you close.
So when you are working with a buyer agent, the point. Sorry, I'm being unclear on my point. The point I'm making is, if you sign an agreement with an agent, you go look at these houses, you change your mind, maybe it's not the right time to buy, maybe things change, the interest rates go up, market shifts. I'm putting the pause button.
Mm-hmm.
You don't owe that agent any money. I hear a lot of people saying, we make a lot of money on the properties, and you are not wrong. However, how many hours, Jackie, do you put in that you make zero? Because we are not W-2, we are 1099.
Yeah, exactly. We're contractors. Yeah, too many hours to name where I haven't gotten paid on deals.
That I closed on a deal. Buyer and seller, they were referred to me, awesome people. They referred to me by their daughter, and honestly, I think was working. I was referred to them 3 years ago. So I talked to them on and off for 3 years before they were finally ready.
Yeah.
If I had charged them hourly, I would have made a lot. I would have charged them a lot to afford me.
Can you imagine? Oh my God.
Amanda Sullivan. Now that you pay buyer's agents, can your seller agent still represent the buyer too? That would be dual agent. And that would, so the question would be, is if they're representing the buyer in the same transaction, so it's dual agency. But if your question is they're representing you selling the house and then representing you buying another house, yes.
Yes.
You certainly can do that. They can wear both hats in different properties, if that's
correct.
What the questions. Yes, I'll interview 3 I just suggested. Yes.
Take Jen's advice.
Do your homework.
Everybody, listen. That's one advice we can give to people right now, that if you need to work with a buyer's agent, interview agents, get somebody you're comfortable with, you feel like that you can trust, and get references too from from friends or whatever of who they work, people that have actually worked with an agent. So
that's that's great advice right there. References.
I have good ideas every now and then, Jen.
You really do, Jackie. And you know what? We're going to be doing videos about that stuff on how to hire people, how to hire agents.
Yes.
Any other person that you're hiring, get more than one opinion.
Absolutely.
Maddie says, I'm looking at properties across multiple counties. Yes, that's where it gets a little bit sticky. Work. I would prefer to narrow things down first rather than having to sign multiple agreements with different realtors. If you can do the legwork on your own, try to. The great thing is would you agree, Jackie? There's so much information available online.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much information to be able to research areas. And amenities and the living lifestyle and driving through the areas and going to open houses, which you don't have to commit to anybody by going to an open house.
Right. But I tell people 100%. That all the time. You do your research. You don't need an agent to tell you, we can make recommendations, but you got to physically look at the neighborhoods yourself. You got to look at the towns yourself. You have to. This is what I did when we bought our house here in Jersey. People must have thought I was flipping nuts. The amount of times I drove through my neighborhood when we were going to buy this house, just to see, what's going on, what's the activity like, and I did that in other towns that we were looking at. You have to physically go and see so get this one. I had clients, how they determined what town they were interested in? They would go shopping in the local grocery store to get a vibe of like was it a younger crowd? Was it an older crowd? Like that. Yeah, they found that was the best way
Brilliant.
to understand, the area, the community by shopping in the local grocery store.
That is super creative.
Right.
And that is like, that's a great idea.
Right. Who would have thought of that? But that's what they did. They went and they're like, yeah, we didn't like this shop, right? We didn't like, we're going to this other store, but it gave them a sense of like, who's living there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, where are they shopping locally? And they got a sense like, oh, okay, there are people like more our age, young families, whatever. So that's how they chose the towns that they wanted to look at. Isn't that crazy?
That is not crazy at all, honestly. That's
but
what you call advocating for yourself.
Doing your homework, doing your due diligence, like you and I say all the time, Jen. That's what people need to do.
Well, so I have some buyer clients that are moving in from Florida, actually, and they reached. I have a local Plymouth channel that I used to have that has content. They found me through that and connected with me and so forth. And so I'd never met them, but they were making a trip up here, and they says, we'd like to meet with you and kind of so on and so forth. Maybe look at some properties, and of course the inventory is so stinking low up here. Is not a whole lot to look at. But what I actually advised them to do exactly what, not necessarily I didn't tell them to go grocery shopping, but I said, you gotta explore.
Yeah.
Be curious and drive different times of the day.
Yep.
And look at the communities. I mean, they're not looking at everything. They have communities in mind, different areas. Plymouth is a big town, 102 square miles. But I said, the best way that I can advise that use your time up here is to do exactly what you just said, like get a feel for the vibe.
Yes.
Because a house is just a house, but a community makes the house. Like
million percent. That's why, like, when we bought this house, I mean, I thank God we found this house, because it was, did I love the house? I didn't love it when we first bought it, but I loved the community. I loved the location. I loved the neighborhood. Like that was more important to us at the time, because our kids were younger. We wanted to get them in better schools, and that was key. And when I tell you, oh my God, the amount of time I spent in this town, and people thought I was nuts, but
you did your due diligence.
Yes, and that's what everyone should do. Right? Yep. See.
Florida have transaction agents that do both sides of the deal. Not sure I feel about that. So interesting to say. So I actually spoke with an agent trying to connect, doing my homework, trying to connect someone from the channel that had reached out to me that wants some advice, some direction on a referral to an agent to sell property, and they they live in the Villages. I wasn't familiar with the Villages in Florida. I am now. Familiar. I mean, aside from being like, holy cow, it's like another country. Like it's enormous, and they have their own. And I don't know if you know this, Jackie. They have their own MLS, and they do not co-broke with people.
I know that.
And if you live and work, if you are an agent within the Villages, the VMS, the Villages VLS, the Villages Listing Service versus MLS.
That's crazy.
And the agent said that she said most of the reps are licensed agents, but they are not a member of NAR, and they do not represent buyers or sellers. They are all transaction agents. Every single one of them is transaction agents.
Interesting. Wow.
So it is, and it goes a little bit more complicated into that, as she was explaining to me how their system works. But I don't know if that model, if that's where you live, or where there's other models that are like that. But I mean, it is what it is. If a transaction agent is exactly that, they're going to manage the transaction. They are not going to give you advice on negotiation.
Yep.
They're not going to give you advice on how to handle, home inspection problem, and whatnot. So, but if that's what you have to deal with, because that's all that's available, you have to advocate for yourself, and that stinks. But
Just
Yeah.
needs more work. So
Yeah, but well, and if it's a place you really want to live at, then it'll be definitely be worth it.
exactly.
He says, I definitely want an agent for the actual purchase, no dual agency. Yes, correct. But don't want to waste agents' time just to make the first view of a property neighborhood. I get it. I totally get it. And that's why I would be like, I would, depending on where area you're looking in, I would try to, get to an open house if possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is I really truly believe that being upfront, that I appreciate when a buyer is upfront with me, when they say, hey, we want to see this property, but we really don't know if we even want to live in Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
I will still go and help them for that day, but my expectations are now, okay, if I never hear from them again, then that's why.
Yep.
That's why. And do I not maybe get into the nuances of transaction and everything? Yes, because that's not information that they're looking for.
Right.
They're there for a particular purpose. So it helps me to know what the buyer wants to get out of it. And yes, is it a possible, like, I'm going to be going there and spending several hours and there's nothing, no monetary reward? Well, that's just part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We do
Exactly.
It's what it is. It's the stuff that does close makes up for the stuff that doesn't have. So it all
Right.
works. But a good agent is not gonna, if they hang up on you and you tell them that, hey, listen, I don't want to, you still have to sign a contract. You can do it for one property, like I said. But if they're like, want more of a commitment, you say, just be upfront with them. Just tell them you're researching and you're scouting for information. And if they got a problem with that, find somebody else.
Absolutely. Hey, Jen, I got to hop off because I got to go on Rebecca's stream in a little while. So
yeah, and you know what? I'm my stomach is about, like, I'm just gonna look at the super quick. So appreciate everybody's like participation in today's stream. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to get to all of these, but you know what? I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bookmark some of these and come back to them next week.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of great comments.
You have a great audience tonight.
Yeah, you know what? I super appreciate every single one of you that has participated, showed up, and given me your precious time this evening to listen to me, and you got a bonus Jackie.
Thanks for letting me crash your party.
Hey, thanks for coming. Anytime.
Yeah, it was good conversation. Good conversation.
You didn't bring any beer though. You didn't bring any beer.
Next time. I'll take
empty-handed. Come on now.
All right, I'll get you next time.
You know what you can do though?
What?
What you can do? As we sign off, we can dance it out together.
Yes, we can.
So everybody, thank you for watching the stream. There's a link in the description if you guys want an agent. You want to be connected to an agent, you can check out the description. There'll be a link with a form you fill out. We'll set up a time to get on a quick phone call so I can understand what your needs are, and then I'll get working on finding somebody good for you. I'll throw Jackie's been on the live stream. I'll throw her link of her channel on there as well.
Oh, you don't have to do that, but that's fine. Thank you.
Be good. Be safe. Do something nice for somebody today. And be nice to each other, be kind, and have a great week.
Have a good one. Thanks, Jen.
Hey, thank you, Jackie.